Episode 100, baby.
It's been a long and bumpy road of horrible games and spotty audio quality, but somehow we've made it to 100 videos. I wouldn't have made it this far without you people, for reasons that will forever baffle me continuing to watch my videos, and naturally I figured I should do something special to mark this occasion, and so I'm going to do one of the big ones. A ton of people have requested it, and I'm finally sacking up. It's time for Ride to Hell Retribution! Released a few years ago and swiftly declared the worst game ever made, Ride to Hell was actually pulled from Steam, which is why I didn't touch it until I found out you can still buy keys for it on Amazon. God knows why you'd want to. I don't know how true this is, but I read the game was pulled from Steam after they tried to give it a 160% discount. They literally could not pay people to play this. The game begins. Holy crap! Soon as the game starts, you're on a machine gun turret butchering people with no context, just dumped in here. And then it smash cuts to you fighting some random guy with quick time events, and then you're jumping a helicopter. What the hell is going on? We are not so ADD that we're going to shut the game off unless something explodes every few minutes. Plus, the fight and the Gatling gun section aren't even in the game. It's like, look at all this cool stuff you can't do! You play as Jake Conway, a Vietnam War veteran who returns from duty and reunites with his Uncle Mac and his little brother Mikey. However, Jake soon learns that a biker gang called the Devil's Hand has taken over their town and rules it with an iron, bloody fist. Or at least I think he learns that. Mac's dialogue is horribly written to where he's always telling both kids, "Don't go out there, it's dangerous, things are different now," rather than just explain that a violent biker gang will kill them on sight. Anyway, Jake's dad was king hot shit of a rival biker gang, and the Devil's Hand decides to kill them once they see Mikey wearing their dad's jacket from said gang. One wonders why Mikey even has the damn jacket in the first place if Mac is fully aware the jacket is a walking bullseye for the gang that runs the whole zip code. I think this game is deathly afraid of sitting still for more than 2 minutes. Right in the middle of these bikers threatening Jake and Mikey, here's an action sequence on a motorcycle. You're at the exact same location with the exact same number of bad guys before and after this fight, even though I drove several miles and punched gallons of blood out of about 7 guys on the way here. So the gang kills Mikey, but somehow manages not to kill Jake, despite opening fire on him point blank with a machine gun, and Jake sets out to bring down the gang as retribution for his brother's death. This game was released in 2013, but it looks and sounds a hell of a lot older than 2013. Almost everybody's hair looks like a solid object fused to their head, textures are muddy and take ages to pop in. Look at the blood on the floor! It doesn't appear unless you're stepping in it. But worst of all, none of the characters' models' facial features move at all when anybody speaks. Only a select few character models actually get any lip syncing. Usually their jaw just droops up and down like a puppet. Often opening so far they look like a zombie with nothing inside their cavernous mouths. And the most you get for expressions is very rarely their eyes will open or narrow. Jake only has 2 static expressions. Sometimes when you do a rage attack, you can see the game swap between them. I'm so angry! I'm over it now. With how many cutscenes and dialogue sections there are in the game, it's super distracting that so little effort went into characters' facial expressions. You can't help but fixate on how alien every character looks and acts, and the voice acting is terrible across the board. You have not known unintentional comedy until you see this shirtless, handlebar-mustached, gay-porn-looking doofus threatening Mikey with a voice like he was dropped down a flight of stairs as a baby. His expression deadpan the entire time like this is just how he talks.
You know how to move, Tony. Like a skinny little old baby cow, ain't he?
Not one delivery is correct. Not a single moment of character interaction is believable. Every single time that Jake speaks, it's in a monotone that is only slightly better than Samus in Metroid Other M. This is Jake trying to sound impatient.
Enough of this shit. Tell me, Doc, who's your supplier in the Devil's Hand?
This is Jake trying to sound sad and sympathetic.
Think he's okay?
I really don't know. I'm sorry.
This is Jake trying to sound vengeful.
And this? Well, this is for Mikey. You remember that name. You hold on to that name in your head.
It always sounds the same. There's no feeling.
Business before pleasure, sweetheart. I don't ever recall seeing a woman fixing a truck before. I need to get into the building, but it's locked. There's a guy in there I need to speak to.
And the game is so heavy on cutscenes, dialogue, and talkie bits that you'd think they'd get someone who could act his way out of a paper bag. I checked IMDb. Jake's voice actor has not had one professional acting job before or ever since this game. I imagine it's hard to get work with this on your resume, though. That was Jake doing an epic scream of rage. Gameplay is broken into 3 separate gameplay modes: driving, melee combat, and gun battles. I think the game itself gets tired of the driving levels because at the start of the game you have to do a driving section every freaking time that the story moves to a new location, but by the halfway point of the game you just teleport from place to place and never have to drive unless it's for a fight or a race. If you hit any object at an even slightly direct angle, the game just fades to black. They couldn't even be bothered to make a falling down animation, and if you fade out too many times in a row, you die. Actually, you awkwardly respawn, drift off to the side, and then you die. It doesn't seem to take much to set off the fade-out, so you can die and respawn from a hit that you should be able to recover from on your own. The controls are ridiculously slippery. There's barely a physics engine when it comes to collisions. The levels are horribly designed, with entire paths blocked off except for a side road you can't see. Doing jumps and other tricks does nothing, despite being encouraged repeatedly to do them. But by far the worst problem with the driving sections is the camera. Unlike every other driving game ever made, the camera does not follow you as it drives around. Every time you make a turn or you fight someone alongside you, the camera stays put and you no longer have any idea where you're turning. If there's any kind of hard turning in a level, you will oversteer and crash into another wall because you can't see where you're going. You constantly have to fiddle with and recenter the camera while driving and trying not to explode. The second or third driving level, I need to power slide underneath this tanker truck and what the hell button prompt is that? After crashing and dying about 7 times, I figure out it's asking me for the shift key. This completely without context symbol pointing upward is a prompt for the shift key. Oh, and about half the time the power slide doesn't work and you still hit the object that you slid under. The game is designed so many of the enemies in these driving sections are physically impossible to kill. These enemies kill themselves by swerving off-road and exploding completely of their own accord. If you took a drink for every driver that committed suicide during a driving section, you'd get plastered. Might finally enjoy the game if you did that. The fist combat is much better, if only because it's so broken that you barely need to try at it. It's yet another cheap knockoff of Arkham Asylum. Click to punch, space to counter, R to break an enemy's guard. But if you break an enemy's guard, they just go right back to blocking as soon as you land a single hit. Yes, this guy raising his bare arms a little bit renders him impervious to being attacked with a hatchet. So you have to keep using the guard break every other attack, until eventually you realize the guard break deals damage too. There's nothing stopping you from just spamming the guard break to stun lock every single enemy until he dies. This also has the added benefit of it looking like you're kicking him 47 times in the junk. He keeps kicking me in the dick! Why? Why does he keep kicking me in the dick? Seriously, look, he's helpless, he can't stop me, and he can't get a single shot in. It takes forever to kill an enemy like this, but you can get away with it because the enemies fight you Dragon Ball Z style. Only one guy attacks you at a time while the entire rest of the group just stands back watching you murder him. The next guy doesn't try until the first one's dead. On the odd occasion a second guy attacks you, you just do a quick counter and he learns to sit down and wait his turn. If you don't turn to the guard breaking strategy, you'll find the combat is horribly designed. The counter prompt doesn't seem to appear unless you're in the process of launching an attack. I've tried to counter one person only to get nailed by another one. Weapons seem to have zero impact on the combat. There's only one type of enemy across the entire game with varying amounts of health, and enemies can easily stun lock you as the counter prompt continuously fails to appear. Hell, you don't even have to bother with the melee combat sometimes. There's nothing stopping you from using a gun to headshot melee enemies and just butchering an entire group before anybody throws a punch. Hell, melee enemies will straight up march in a straight line towards you so that you can get a headshot on the entire group in a row without having to move. I would have taken advantage of this more often if the controls weren't so crap. It's very clear that Ride to Hell was developed for consoles and then shoddily ported to the PC. Pretty much every button you use is clustered as tightly as possible around the movement keys, and the keys cannot be rebound. Braking in the driving levels is bound to R, which means you can't brake without letting go of the keys that you need to steer. Taking cover and dodge rolling is mapped to Q, which is smack dab in the middle of all the movement keys, which makes rolls very difficult to aim. Plus, it's kind of weird how the game just flat out never tells you most of the game's important controls. I found out on accident that you can run, and I found out after a boss fight where running is required. I'm pretty sure the game never tells you how to do the turbo boost that you need for most of the driving levels, and most infuriatingly, the game never tells you how to switch weapons. Pretty much every time I switched from gun combat to melee combat, I ended up spraying a full magazine of bullets into empty space and getting the shit kicked out of me while I desperately fumble on all the keys trying to put my damn gun away. It's not helped by the fact that every button does wildly different things if you're fighting or shooting, and R is used to both stun lock, kick, and reload. It's just hell trying to get the game to figure out when you want to switch between melee and shooting. This hybrid whatever shit gameplay is just horribly designed. Anyway, the first level of the game is Anvil, the gay porno guy we're killing first as punishment for his terrible voice acting. You follow him to a hotel and there's some dude harassing a random woman in the parking lot. I punch the guy out, and the game smash cuts to Jake grabbing the girl's tinnies and railing her doggy style in a hotel room. Hey, what? Why do they both still have their clothes on? Why did this chick decide to jump into bed with some random guy when the only thing she knows about him is his propensity to violence towards strangers? Why is Jake banging this chick when the gang member he trailed here could leave at any time and vanish forever? Why do both of their faces look so dead and emotionless? This is only a step above bumping two dolls together. And then it's over, just back in the parking lot. Anvil escapes and hides in a brewery. To get inside the brewery, a mechanic points you to her deadbeat husband, who has the key and a stolen family ring. You beat the guy into a coma, get the key, and...
This girl can do a lot more than just start an engine.
Oh no, oh, please, oh, come, really? Really? Now he's plowing the mechanic? It hasn't been 10 minutes. I just love the fact that they didn't even try to hide that they were either too lazy or too chicken to make nude or even partially undressed models. He is having sex with his own jeans, and they just didn't care.
What the?
I found Anvil.
Move! Move! Yeah, the game has a recurring glitch where you spawn in and you just can't move. It's happened like 4 times.
So you break into the brewery and have your first experience with gun combat. It sucks too! Enemies take a downright ridiculous number of gunshots to kill. The weakest enemy in the game, I believe I counted 6 shots to kill with the basic pistol. 6! An entire magazine, at the bare minimum! So the only way to kill enemies with any kind of decent speed is to go for headshots, and there are some enemies where even that doesn't work. See, every now and then in a shooting encounter, you'll run into a dude who's wearing a hockey mask, and this plastic mask is somehow bulletproof and keeps these guys from dying to headshots. So these douchebags can take, I shit you not, at least 30 shots to kill. Luckily, the masked pricks don't even try to use cover and just march straight into your bullets. Which brings me to my next point, the enemies are dumber than mashed potatoes on pizza. Most of the enemies can barely hit a target, even standing a few feet away from you. Enemies will attempt to use cover in places where you blatantly still have a clear shot at them. Hell, sometimes the enemies just zone out and wander around the level completely out in the open like they got sudden onset Alzheimer's. And what pours extra shit on top of the awful gun combat is the shitty controls of the PC port. The game will randomly just not register that I've got the right mouse button pushed down to where I can't iron sight aim, and there's no cursor if you're not iron sight aiming, so the gun becomes useless. I've had quick time events where I have to left click the mouse, and even if I use the mouse built into the laptop, it just doesn't work. And aiming with the mouse is so screwed up that it took me forever to figure out what the problem was. The cursor majorly overreacts to even the most minor mouse input, and trying to aim with any degree of precision is just ridiculous. It takes forever to line up a headshot, which I remind you is the only effective way to play the game, because the cursor will overshoot every time you try to make a slight adjustment. Apparently the PC port controls the cursor by trying to convert your mouse input into control stick input, and that causes the aiming to be ridiculously sensitive. I'm pretty sure it took more effort to make the game run like shit like this than it would have to make this control correctly. The gun combat is ridiculously tedious and immensely frustrating. You're surrounded by enemies that will outflank you, mostly by dumb luck, and your gun doesn't do jack shit to any of them. You fire and fire and fire at the same guy and the shithead doesn't go down, plus you don't get enough ammo to kill these damaged sponge enemies to begin with. The only way to get out of most of the groups is to headshot every single person which requires you to pick out an enemy, take several seconds fighting controls that constantly overshoot to line up a shot, very carefully lining up a shot until the dickweed leaps cover and runs around in random circles and you have to start all over, all while the game keeps dropping your iron sight aim because the controls are crap. It takes ages of fighting the controls just to line up a single headshot, but you finally do it and kill the bastard, and now you just have to do it 5 more times to kill the rest of the group, and then move on to another group and do it all again. The game's conceit to a difficulty curve is to make the enemies spawn in greater numbers and give the enemies better guns that kill you in seconds, and if you do get overwhelmed, a lot of the levels are designed so that the enemies can very easily surround you and most of the cover is useless. You're not given a chance to recover from a mistake, and that's assuming the cover works to begin with. The enemies are dumb as rocks, but the game has so many cheap tricks to give enemies the advantage that you'll still die constantly. Shit! One of the sterling examples of how horribly designed the shooting sections are comes in Untitled Chapter, and this is the point in the story where any sympathy Jake's character had just gets murdered, cremated, and pissed on its grave. This is how Untitled Chapter goes. You run a deal for a drug dealer to get Colt's location, murdering several honest cops in the process. He points you towards Colt's girlfriend, a character model recycled from a hooker you met earlier, and who gets recycled for another prominent extra later. You rescue her from some dudes trying to rape her, and coitus ensues. She begs for it, too. This game just makes me feel dirty for playing it.
Is there anything I can do to show my gratitude?
I could use a drink.
Come on now. I'm sure you could use something more than that.
You find Colt is holed up in a ranch, but the ranch is protected by an electric fence. Just how would you get through an electric fence? Patrol the perimeter for an opening, drive straight through it with a car to smash through, search for some electrical circuit powering the thing and destroy that? No. Jake's plan is to beat 5 civilians to death, steal their tanker truck, run over and murder another 20 to 30 cops with said tanker, drives the tanker to a hydroelectric dam, murders 30+ civilian workers at the dam's power plant, then blows up the tanker and destroys the power plant that supplies power to the entire surrounding area. This was Plan A to get through a fence! Of course, Jake isn't the brightest knife in the crayon box to begin with, given the first thing he does when he finds Colt is trap himself in a burning building. You fight through Colt's ranch and come across another girl getting assaulted. Hold on. This whore looks familiar. Yeah, it's the same character model I saved at the hotel, and they even replay the exact same sex scene when you save her. They couldn't slap together a few more parts for one more character model? Jake, get your head out of the way, I can't freaking aim! So Colt escapes and runs to yet another location, the airplane graveyard, which I spent well over an hour and a half inside because every level is padded with identical looking rooms until the monotony just makes you want to scream! Ah! You press Q to take cover, but pretty much every solid object in the game can be used as cover, so when you try and take cover, it's a total crapshoot what you'll stick to and whether it will actually block any bullets. If you're not immediately behind cover, pressing Q will do a dodge roll and, again, magnetize you to the first semi-solid piece of matter you graze, leaving you wide open and now unable to move. There are several pieces of cover that the game just flat out will not let you shoot from. Take this cargo container, for example. If I'm facing left, I can poke out and shoot people. To the right, I can't. In this shootout, about 4 guys run out and you start fighting them like normal, then 2 enemies appear at a high vantage point and they kill you in 2 shots. Go figure, the only enemies that can hit a damn target in the entire game, and I wonder what guns they're using because nothing in this game dies in 2 hits except me right now. Oh, shit. Ah! I tried to dodge roll away and I got super glued to a wall. Ah, god damn it! How am I supposed to kill these guys if they kill me less than a second after I pop my head out to shoot them? I can't move to another piece of cover. They never stop shooting. You can't time it. What the hell am I supposed to do? Oh, that works. Run past the entire group of enemies before the snipers spawn. This is ridiculous. Enemies so incompetent you can leisurely stroll through the middle of the field. Hello? Guys, how do you not see me? Do you see me now? Oh no, my bullets are powerless against his plastic mask. What the hell is that? All of the enemies in this area are dead. I've never seen that appear once up until now. It's like the game is so broken that a chunk of its code just came loose and landed on the screen. Oh my god. This guy somehow found his way to the top of the cargo box and is now trying to take cover behind empty air. I almost feel bad slaughtering people this bottomlessly stupid. The boss fight with Colt himself starts with Colt shooting at you with a Gatling gun. If you do the logical thing and start making your way forward to get a clear shot at him, enemies spawn around you and you get outflanked and die. Your best bet is to stay where you spawn and shoot Colt at a distance so when the enemies spawn, they're all on the opposite side of the map as you. Once you shoot both Colt and this wave of enemies, I again do the logical thing and run to the plane to finish Colt off. A new group of enemies immediately spawns in the arena I just left, there's zero cover in the plane, and I get butchered again. You know, there's expecting the player to adapt to situations, there's asking the player to be tactical, and then there's death traps that are pure trial and error. There's almost no usable cover in this arena unless you circle around to the side, and the combat is so unbalanced that it revolves around lining up headshot after headshot. This takes time that you do not have when a group of enemies spawns out of nowhere in positions that outflank you with nowhere to take cover. Pretty much the only way through this section is to die over and over again until you figure out the best position to get into for each enemy wave. I can't shoot out from behind these pieces of cover, piece of shit. And guess what? There's another enemy wave that spawns after this one. I get the feeling that you're supposed to grab Colt's Gatling gun to kill these waves of enemies, but enemies don't wait to spawn until you've grabbed the Gatling gun. It's all set on timers, so they spawn before you can get to the gun. And even if you do go for the turret, Colt is in the plane with two douchebags that are immune to headshots, so that's a trap too. So the game is explicitly designed to prevent you from doing something that the game is explicitly designed for you to do. And there are several shootouts in the game like this, where the only way to progress is to get killed and forced to replay entire sections until you know what's coming and where to go to avoid dying. This scene where you finally get to kill Colt is a perfect demonstration of the game's Vulcan-like deliveries and lazy production. Colt gets shot in both knees and in the junk, and not only does his voice actor barely react, his facial expression doesn't change at all from its default. The next level is Meat Hook, which is blessedly short. It's just one race and then 4 back-to-back fistfights in a fight club. Round 1 is spamming the guard break kick. Round 2 is spamming the guard break kick. Round 3 is spamming the guard break kick. Round 4, the big bad gang member and boss of this chapter, is spamming the guard break kick. Look how balanced this combat is! In between levels, you go to Jake's hometown of Dead End. Ride to Hell was intended to be an open-world sandbox, but the game got stuck in development hell for 5 years and emerged as this completely linear monstrosity. As such, Dead End, which was clearly supposed to be the main hub of the game world, is completely barren. There are exactly 3 things in the town. Mac's Bike Shop, where you can waste time on bike customization and marvel at the amazing disappearing emblem on the front door. There's some dude who buys the drugs you pick up from literally 90% of the enemies, at a gun store where you can buy ammo and souped-up versions of the basic weapons. You can carry one heavy weapon in addition to your pistol, either an assault rifle, a shotgun, or a machine gun, and most money in the game is rendered completely useless because the assault rifle is the only useful weapon. See, the pistol and the rifle can be pinpoint aimed for headshots, while the shotgun and machine gun cannot. The one time I tried using a machine gun, the bullets just scattered everywhere, and it took most of a magazine to down a single enemy because none of them scattered towards his head. I bought the most powerful assault rifle after the first level, used that one gun the entire damn game, and it turns out that is by far the smartest course of action. The only reason I tried the machine gun in the first place, by the way, was the game bugged out and disintegrated said rifle after one of the missions. I do wish I had tried the dynamite more often though, because it deals a ton of damage, has a large blast radius, and enemies are so earthquakingly stupid, they're just as likely to run towards your dynamite as run away from it. Funny story, I had no idea there's supposed to be music in the town or loading screens until I rewatched Angry Joe's review of the game. Music did not play a single time in either of these locations the entire game. I almost think the PC version is missing audio files, and the music in general drops out at least once per level and it doesn't come back. The music itself is alright, but it's so repetitive and it repeats itself so often that you just get sick of it. The sound effects are ass and gravy. Every time you hit an enemy, it's just a little poof with no impact. There is exactly one explosion sound effect that's used for everything across the entire game. I'm not exaggerating. not even a good explosion sound effect, and there are no crashing sounds if you hit anything or any of the many times two vehicles crash into each other in driving levels. Enemies don't even grunt as you butcher them or shoot them in the gut, and a lot of things in cutscenes that should make noise are just silent. You didn't even make an attempt at some of the sound effects. It's lazy sound design and crappy Foley effects all around. It just adds to how alien every single thing in the game world feels. That's the game, honestly. The gameplay never evolves or changes. The fist fights at the end of the game are identical to the ones at the start because there's one enemy type. There's no improvement to the AI. It's just the same two fights repeated over and over again. The game gets sick of its own driving levels and you barely have to do them anymore by the halfway point. The only moderate evolution in gameplay is the gun combat, which doesn't so much change as the enemies get better weapons and you get crappier cover. You get so tired of doing the exact same two crappy fights over and over across the entire game. It makes you feel a mixture of balls achingly bored and teeth grindingly frustrated at the same time. Every time you're forced through another chunk of blatant filler with the same damn enemies, with the same damn tedious mechanics, you just groan as you realize how transparently the game is wasting your time. The game is 10 to 12 hours long of the same two fights over and over and over and over. A game with zero variety like this has got no business being this damn long. It's bad enough the game is a bucket of piss, but the game just keeps dunking you in the same bucket of piss over and over. And the story sure as shit doesn't keep you engaged. There are no characters. There is no character development. I defy you to list a single character trait for either Mac or Jake beyond bottomless stupidity. The entire story is just kill the next gang member, and every freaking time said gang member flees to 2 or 3 different locations to pad out the game. That's it up until the ending. I mean, the story still has batshit insane stuff in it, but still, almost nothing happens. The next gang member is Greasy Steve, who you have to chase in a driving level, and hitting any object a single time causes Steve to get away and you have to restart the level. And it doesn't matter because even if you beat this section, Steve gets away anyway. I honestly don't know what happens next. A girl asks you to take her to see a band, but you end up at a house where a bunch of gang members are trying to rape 4 girls. It's an entire level that only exists to set up yet another sex scene with the 4 girls. You find out Greasy Steve is entering a race, so to pad out the game some more, you have to fight your way through a small town for an engine upgrade. Oh, come on! I can't shoot through the empty space between these 2 tree limbs. In the middle of this filler level, you rescue another girl from being raped and you get plowed for your efforts. Okay, that's it. This is just fucking offensive. I'm about halfway through the game, and this is the 6th time I've had to rescue a woman from a man, and the 5th time I've had to save at least one girl from getting raped. I haven't come across a single woman who was used for anything other than sex in this game. Every single female character in the game is either a prostitute, a stripper, needs to be rescued from male assailants, or has sex with you on first sight. It's almost always some combination thereof, and every woman in the game is portrayed as being weak, helpless, reliant on men to save them from everything. The only exception to this in the entire game is a high-ranking gang member named Brandy, who's utterly incompetent and downright stupid in contrast to all the other elite gang members you face. Oh, and everybody except for the one underage girl character has jugs the size of watermelons to boot. The game portrays all women as sex objects, not people with emotions, thoughts, or brains, not even as general human beings. They're just prizes for the alpha male, things to stick a penis inside of, and it's downright disgusting! You race with Greasy Steve, which would have been more fun if the game didn't treat the ankle-high grass as impregnable brick walls, and you shoot Steve about 50,000 times to finally kill him. God, I wish I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Wheelie Breakers right now. Junk Warrior would put this ass down good. The next thug is King Dick, a pimp who also owns a strip club. You save a stripper from another assault, go around town trolling for whores and saving them from more sexual assailants, and kill another 30 or so cops until you find out he's in a church. Surprisingly, you don't pork anybody in this chapter, but given that I'm pretty sure I can't show you any footage from the strip club, I'd say we've hit the quota for misogyny as it is. The boss fight with King Dick, you have to dodge dynamite as it's thrown at you, and the game never tells you that you can even run, and I got killed constantly. Walking is too slow, so my first instinct was to dodge roll, which just fused me to one of the 1,000 pieces of destructible cover fragments littering the level and glued me in place so I could die faster. Plus, King Dick takes half the ammo that exists on Earth to the face to finally kill. Die! Die already!
What the hell? How is this still happening?
The next thug is 666, who attacks Mac's garage and then runs to a logging company. A lumberjack says he'll help you get in if you find all 7 of his pot stashes for him. This level is seriously boring, more blatant filler, and considering this is the only other place in the game you can find a drug dealer, I'm pretty sure this level is only here because this hub area was done before they canned the sandbox. The shootout to get into the sawmill pissed me the hell off and was the only time I dropped down to easy difficulty because the enemies never stop respawning and you're supposed to sit on a pressure pad for several minutes with 0 cover. You have no way of doing this without getting killed and being sent back about 20 minutes, by the way. You're also supposed to use a turret to hold off said never-ending enemies while the elevator goes back up, but the damn thing can't aim low enough to clear enemies off the pressure pad. They sat this turret here specifically to have you use it, and then designed the entire level so that you can't use it. The only reason I beat this level is because the enemies are so dumb they forget they're supposed to stand on the pad, and they kept wandering off so I could get away. It's always nice when blatant design flaws are fixed by worse blatant design flaws. It's like the game is managing to outsuck itself. You kill 666, who's only hard because you have to fight him in one very specific way, and move on to Pretty Boy, the right-hand man of the gang's leader, Cesar. Jake doesn't know where Pretty Boy is, and decides to infiltrate the gang through his gal Brandy. I want to repeat that. Jake's plan is to infiltrate and join the gang, whose members all know his name, recognize him, and shoot to kill on sight. He even does this while still wearing the very clearly labeled jacket that got Mikey killed on sight at the start of the game. He gives Brandy his real name, for Christ's sake! But Brandy somehow doesn't know the guy who's killed over half their entire gang, and she sends you to steal a bike from a mine. Naturally, you murder every civilian worker in the place once they refuse to cooperate.
Listen, buddy, I'm not here to kill you.
I come in peace! I am here to help you! Also, someone forgot what the story of this level is because you fight more bikers in the mine. You kill more police and have the bike fitted with explosives. That is pretty clever. Precisely assassinate Pretty Boy when he goes to use the bike, or just blow it up right away to get his attention, forcing you to fight about 50 heavily armed bikers out in the open with no cover. Brilliant! Oh, for God's sake, look at this frame rate! How am I supposed to aim when the cursor just teleports from place to place? Pretty Boy tells Jake that his brother was killed because Cesar has a grudge with Jake's dad and put a kill order out for the entire family. This somehow takes Jake by surprise, despite being told the exact same thing by the last 3 bosses he killed.
Cesar wants you dead because of your dad. You and your brother were on the hit list.
He also lets slip that Jake's dad is dead, which might have had more weight if they ever talked about him at all, or ever implied that he was alive in the first place. Last level, thank Christ, is Cesar, the leader of the Devil's Hand. Mac explains the giant secret of why Cesar hates Jake's dad so much that he put out a kill order on their entire family. Jake's dad lost a bet and skipped town! No, really, that's the twist. Jake's brother was killed because the biker gang just doesn't like their dad, which was pretty self-evident at the start of the game. Jake does some more filler, errands, and he comes home to find Mac dead and Ellie kidnapped.
No! No! No!
Yeah, keep trying, Jake. I'm sure you'll get a convincing take eventually. Oh, shit, you have no idea who Ellie is, do you? See, Ellie was Mikey's girlfriend. She's only appeared about twice in the game, has had almost no dialogue, is mentioned maybe 5 or 6 times total, we don't know a single thing about her, and she has 0 impact of any kind on the entire plot. So naturally it's supposed to be an earth-shattering twist when Cesar turns out to be her father. They didn't even try to incorporate these ostensibly vital characters into the story. Between Jake's dad and Ellie, they keep asking us to care deeply about characters that are barely even mentioned. I'm not exaggerating when I say Ellie has absolutely nothing to do with the plot and has had maybe 1 minute total of screen time up until now across the entire game, and almost no dialogue, no character traits to speak of, and suddenly she's supposed to be the most important character in the entire game. The thing that sucks is that Ellie's voice actress, my hand to God, actually delivers a really solid voice acting performance. I swear, it's by far the best performance in the game, faint praise though that may be, but it's ruined by the animator that was too damn lazy to animate any of the parts of her face!
I wanted to. I really did, but I just couldn't. I had no idea where my father was, but you were the only person who seemed strong enough to get to him.
Poor girl's acting her ass off and she's being sabotaged by a character model whose face can't convey any base emotion.
I hate you! I hate you! I wish you were dead!
The only reason the last level is difficult is because there are 3 points where you fight douchebags with rocket launchers that more or less kill you in one hit instantly. Again, relying on the cheapest tricks to crank up difficulty, because screw it, game design is too hard! So you fight your way through the stadium, chase down Cesar, gouge his eyes out with no sound effects or pain screams of any kind. It takes place in complete silence, and he falls off a cliff and explodes.
It's over. We did it, Mikey.
Yes, congratulations, Jake. You avenged your brother. You're also a full-blown domestic terrorist, directly responsible for about 100 civilian deaths. The combined police force across the whole region is now 3 guys at a chia pet. Any nearby hospitals now have 0 power and no hope of getting power back anytime in the near future. You've spread about 5 new viral STDs through these small populations, and the local brewery, logging, and mining industries are pretty much foobarred. But you avenged your brother. Yay. So that was Ride to Hell Retribution, and it's awful! Not one mechanic works correctly, not one element is designed competently. There is not a single aspect to the entire game that is actually fun or possesses any kind of quality. All 3 gameplay modes suck on toast as you just do the exact same 3 things with no variation across 10 to 12 tedious, mind-numbing, simultaneously bored and frustrated hours, and the complete and utter failure of trying to tell an epic story is nothing short of spectacular. Unforgiving driving levels with shit controls and bogus physics, broken melee combat where you just stun lock every enemy, an arsenal of useless weapons, enemies that take entire magazines to kill, enemies too stupid to eat, half the game is obnoxious filler, no characters to speak of, piss poor production values, some of the worst voice acting you'll ever hear, a plot that's completely impossible to care about, rampant, bald-faced, rampaging misogyny, characters that they decided at the end were supposed to have been important the entire time, protagonist who's almost as evil as the villain yet still treated as a pure hero with no trace of irony. Everything sucks balls! And as inconceivably bad as the base game is, the PC port is so much worse, with horrible controls that are glitchy on top of that, missing sound files, and a frame rate that can stutter so as to make the game unplayable. What makes it so much more bizarre is that they were really proud of this game. This was supposed to launch a brand new Major League franchise. This was maximum effort. They had 2 new games in development and about ready to launch when this tanked. How do you try so hard and fail so much harder? You jam your head so far up your ass that you can't tell when you're taking a shit anymore. That's how.
Another shitty game done and dusted, and that's only the beginning. There's so much shit out there on these consoles that trying to cover it all is like the never-ending battle. I never know what to say at the end of these videos, so I guess I'm just going to say, thanks for continuing to follow me on this journey. I'm nowhere near finished yet, and I'm gonna play something that's not shit.